With the help of Chat GPT, I decided to transform this under the stairs closet space into the ultimate kitchen pantry. After some initial impossible designs, I finally got some good suggestions to use as my template for my final design. The first thing we have to do to get this project started is to get all this crap out of there. Let's do it with a click. Ta-da! I don't know where my hand was, so we'll just give her a broad approach. I was about to break out the shelf to get rid of these, but then I realized these aren't even attached. I do plan to paint, but first, demolition. I want to get this trim off the wall first, and I want to do it in such a way I can reuse it. So what I recommend, take a little X-Acto blade or a utility knife and cut the caulking at the top. This will make you tear the wallpaper or the paper just a little less. I forgot my hammer. I can see where it was nailed in, so hopefully it comes out easy. Oh, you know what else I need? I need something to pry against the wall so I don't tear up the drywall. Let me get a piece of wood. Wedge against so you don't oh my God. So you don't crack your drywall like I cracked my trim. Luckily they use giant nails. So I'm using the technique, hammer in, pull down, put the piece, pull up, pull up. Maybe it's below the carpet. Let's take the carpet out first. Carpet should just rip out. Yeah, the carpet just pulls out. Ta-da! All right, we'll probably be making new trim. The old pine trim just completely broke coming out of there. There was pretty big nails holding it into place, so I just went ahead and ripped it all out, ripped up the tack strips holding in the carpet, and then vacuumed up the debris. Now that demolition is complete, I really recommend waiting about 6 to 7 months before finishing this project. That way your wife really appreciates the final result. In my case, I'm going to go ahead and move on to finishing it so we can have a functional pantry. Next step, we are going to paint. I'm just going with like a very, this was on sale. Buy one, get one free or something like that. So we just bought interior eggshell in a nice, bright white color. We just want this to be a light and airy feeling place you'd feel good to store your rubbish. And I'm gonna just dump this on here. I don't know how much it's gonna take. I'm sure that was probably too much. There's gotta be a way to not ruin your paint cans every time, but I've yet to find it. I'm just gonna lightly put this on here so I kick it and make a mess later. Thinking. I am gonna do this back wall and the whole ceiling. So we're just gonna start back here. This is one coat, but I have never actually seen a paint that actually went on with one coat. We shall see. The paint color does not show up real great on camera. This color was creamier than my wife really wanted. She more wanted a bright white. If I pause right here, you can see the new color on the right, and it is more of a tan compared to the original. So I went back to Lowe's and got a can of Ultra White by Sherwin-Williams to finish the job. For the flooring, we went with an LVP because it's pretty durable and you can get it wet. There's several different brands of LVP. We picked this brand just because it had the color we liked. I like working with this stuff because it's easy to cut. You just score it with the razor blade, then snap it. I'm just gonna build it this way. It's gonna be a whoop. For this closet, the first piece will be the only tricky part. You want the LVP panel to slide underneath the jamb. You have to cut a little away. There's two good tools to do this. One is one of these Japanese hand saws. I just put a piece of the scrap LVP on the floor and used it as a guide to make sure I was trimming high enough. You can also use one of these little oscillating tools. I used that after I cut the initial line with the handsaw. Then I had to chisel away some of the door jamb that was in there to knock out some of the little wooden chunks. This is the only part that is gonna take some time, because what we gotta do is we gotta trim this piece. Let's push this in there as far as that'll go. Push that in there as far as it'll go. Butt it up to it. So the first cut needs to be right here, right there, and it's gonna go down to here. So I gotta cut out that square. For these smaller cuts, I just use a jigsaw and a fine blade. How do I get the next one? I think I gotta do double. Okay. So that comes to there. So you keep this. I think I'm way overthinking this. What if I just start easing my way into it? What if I just like cut around the circle first? Do it like this. I got it too tight up here. Okay. I don't know if you can even see what I'm doing. We'll just focus on that side so you can see it come together. It needs to come up about an inch. Go ahead and swoop that out of there. No, I don't want to do that. Oh, good. That's on there forever. And then I mark the wall. Let's just cut that like that. Hopefully that's not on there forever. I need to take off about 1/4 of an inch all the way around. Probably a way to do this that doesn't involve 1,000 trips. This side is near perfect. Go around that a little bit. That isn't perfect. And there's a hole in there. So I'll butt up some trim or something right there. But from like there to there, it looks perfect. It's gonna do one piece and then I'm gonna trim a bunch of them. Okay, so you just clip it in and then push it down. And hold on, one more trick. Get a little block of wood, put it on, I like to get it on the edge so it's not on the attachy edge, and tap it together. You can watch, it just seats it just a little better when you do that. I'm just gonna cut a bunch of pieces and zip my way down. I didn't worry about going all the way to the wall because I knew I'd have a cabinet covering the back edge. So I placed 3 screws right at the edge of the planks, but not going through the planks, so they can have a little bit of movement, but they shouldn't just completely slide away from the front door edge. This is the cabinet I'm going to be using for the back of that closet. We do want it white, so I'm going to have to paint one of them. I got a bunch of these. They were, if you got 10 of them, they were $25 from a local Salvation Army. And like, I'm going to put a bench here. This is my garage. So I'm going to put a bench back there in my garage. I'm going to put them upstairs in my shop, and one of them for the back of this closet. Since you'll only ever see the front of this cabinet, I'm just going to paint this panel white. So first I had to take apart the mini screws holding the doors in place. I then removed the gloss from the front of the panels with 120 grit sandpaper. Before final paint, I primed using this primer, as that was what was recommended on the internets. I'm going to be spraying with just this acrylic paint. And I'm just going to thin it just a little bit with water. Add a little bit of water. And my paint guy gave me a trick. He said add water until when you drip it, it instantly disappears. Like if you can draw circles with the paint, it's too thick. So I mix it and then like it instantly disappears in there. It doesn't leave a pattern. I'm spraying this using my Fuji 2 Semi-Pro that I got from Amazon. I didn't do a bunch of coats. I sprayed in a couple of different sessions from a couple of different angles. So I guess I did do a couple of coats. I'm going to put the doors back in, and I modified this, and I will show you. First, you do one wall. I'm just gonna run a little glue down here just to help stiffen it up once it's set up. I don't know how much that helps, but it makes me feel better. Put one in the top first. Okay. It comes with so this is the adjustment I made to the back. Cut a hole out of it, the same shape as the hole out of the front. Okay. Go ahead and put glue on this side. Now I can have a shelf that actually sticks out farther behind and it'll fit through the door. I think that's a good idea. Let me put the final L brackets in. All right. I'm gonna move that before I do that again. Welcome to Drawer Making 101. And by that I mean, this isn't a class on how to make a drawer, but it's a class on me figuring out how to make a drawer. Now I told my wife I could make drawers for this, but I've actually never made a drawer before. I assumed I'd be able to figure it out. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a blocking here to make sure the rails stick out far enough not to hit this opening, since this opening wasn't technically designed for, this opening was more designed for like a sink drop in, so so this was a false door. So I'm just going to do something I know I can make work. I'm gonna attach a 2x4 up here, and I'm gonna do one on the other side, and then I'm gonna put my rails right there and build the drawer to fit in betwixt that. And then I'll just attach it to this for the front. I think that'll work. I'm gonna just screw through here because nobody can see that, and I'm just adding the glue just to stiffen everything up. The other thing this does is it just kind of stiffens this whole cabinet up. This cabinet's kind of flimsy, and I'm gonna put in enough screws so hopefully I end up put a screw in right where I need the rail to go. And now I'm gonna attach the rails, which actually, I guess I gotta take the drawer front off now. Pretty sure the way these work. Pull this out, and I'm just going to put it along the bottom, which hopefully I put in the right spot. I'm actually not gonna put it on the very bottom. I'm gonna put it along the curve. Okay. Let's see if that goes in all the way. Woohoo! Put the one on the other side. Let's play a game. As soon as you realize I have no idea what I'm doing, hit a thumbs up. Rails in place. Let's build a drawer. I've been doing some cutting. I don't like doing rabbets. I just like nailing stuff together because it's quicker. I have cut a drawer bottom and 2 sides, and then I cut a little strip and I nailed it on the bottom. So what I'm gonna do now is like this, and then put the front and backs on, and I think that'll hold it together. Let me glue this together and then glue the front on. It's gonna get loud, so it's gonna be a montage. So I made my drawer, as you can see, and we're going to attach the rail to it. So look, this pulls out of here and it goes right here. I have done some measurements. I have my tape measure, which I have instantly lost. 2 3/4. This is my line. I want this to be 1 inch from the front. 1, 2, 3. Do the same thing on the other side. Let's see if this thing slides in. Is it too tight? Is that what I got going on here? Oh, I don't think I actually have that one in. Oh, there we go. I didn't have the one side in. All right. All right, ta-da! And then I guess you just glue this to the front of that. But I made a drawer, and then while I was waiting for some stuff to dry earlier, I made these shelves on the bottom. These are the trays, at least. Tomorrow, I'll have to attach all that stuff. I got the top done. I guess it's pretty smooth. You gotta get it just enough to pull shut. My wife just held this centered, and then I screwed it on from the back. I need the handles, but that's a future problem. So now we're gonna do the bottom. I did actually do a little research for this. You're basically supposed to make the sliders 1 inch shorter than the width of that. So that would have been useful to know. But what I'm gonna do, I set up some blocking down here. This one's already attached. The ones with the sliders are not. And the idea is I'm gonna have this shelf on here that comes in and out, and then I'll have like pan on. This is the support, then the pan will be on top. But then it's 2x4, so it should be strong. So we want to attach these in there now. And the way I'm gonna do that is I'm going to put some glue, slider. All right, hold on. Glue. See? And then I gotta attach it, and I just realized I might not, because I was gonna come up through the bottom. So I gotta figure out how to lift this without screwing everything over. See if that's good enough. So now we open this, pull out this. Ugh, God, this stuff's so greasy. Pull this out of here. I was supposed to be able to put it at the front and at the bottom. Where's my drill? I've lost my flopping drill. All right. Just front. Look at that. Let's do the other side. Now I have 2 slides. Once I get them inside, I can attach these 2, which will actually hold these up even better, and then I can pull these out like that. Let's take this inside and put it together. So the cabinet I made does not completely fill the back wall of the closet. I was planning just to put a little stop against the other side. My wife requested some cubbies to be able to store bottles of her soy sauces or oyster fish sauce stuff she has. So using some extra pieces from one of the other cabinets I had, and there's extra because one of the boxes did not have a bottom floor, so I just used it for scrap pieces. I made this little cubby system to hold those bottles using my favorite method of brad nail and glue. Actually, watching this footage, I realized I did not use brad nails. I actually drilled and screwed this entire thing together. And the reason I did that was because the 1/2-inch plywood is a little thin to try to brad nail. After all the glue dried, I covered any imperfections in the front part with just some Bondo, and then I sanded, primed, and painted the front of this cabinet like I did the other piece, with some of the worst recording I did of the video. I'm gonna put 4 shelves on the wall. These first 3, they could be on the studs. This 4th one, I don't know, because I don't want it to be like right there, because I don't want it to you'll see. I'm gonna start them 18 inches off the ground, which with this one, we'll put it up there because our KitchenAid stand mixer will probably be on the ground. And it is, you know, if it's at 18 inches, it'll fit over this. So here's my stud. So that's right there. And somehow I'm already getting this wall screwed up. This is about 18 inches. That's straight up and down. And now, if God has shown fortune upon me, there's a stud right there. Oh yeah, 1. Hopefully, there is another stud right here. Yay, okay, good. This is 58 inches long. I want it to be 2 inches from the ceiling. So we'll cut it down to 56 inches. Just 4 inches off the top. 2 can be as bad as 1. It's the loneliest number since the number 1. 3 isn't even in this song. Dos secchies more. The problem is the stud would be like right here, and I don't want it to stick out 12 inches right there. So I'm gonna bring it to here, which means no stud. I'm just gonna do 4 plaster anchors. This brand, Triple Grip, which I like, I get it from Lowe's. And this is the heavier duty ones of 46. Hopefully the studs on that one and not on this one, it'll balance itself out. We'll find out if it all comes crashing down. Ta-da! Okay, that's the cabinet thing I built. Okay, so there's a little thing. It needs some paint touching up, but it's gonna look better. Drawer comes out of the top. If you push it in enough, it grabs soft close. 2 cabinets. These pull out independent. And then, so like I can, there we go. And then they stick out further. The back, so you get a little extra depth there. But the way I put these in, it was kind of a pain. I had to put that over first and then slide this one in. I couldn't record it. My butt was in the way the whole time. I have a screw connecting that part to the stud. This is screwed to this, somewhere over here too, and I think down inside of there. And then I got a couple screws along the stud over here and one back there. That's how that's connected. And now what I'm gonna do, you saw in the drawer, the cowlick. I'm just gonna caulk that edge and that edge. Oh, and then for the bottom, I just cut a board and painted it white, the same width as that, and that's just pushed up into that little recess. And actually, that's what the front edge of that is sitting on. You can watch me caulk. Nice. I don't know if this is how you're supposed to do this, but I always take my finger and I go up it. Yeah, there we go. Actually, that looks pretty good. yeah, and then just disappeared. Don't worry about the bottom because there's gonna be trim that butts into there. Guys, that made that look like I knew what I was doing. That was utter luck that came out that nice. Lowe's made me mad with the trim. A 6-foot piece of trim that was 8 inches tall, which is how tall I wanted to cover any damage from the other trim coming off of there, or the floor molding, was $34 per board. So that means the fact that those boards broke was going to cost me $70. Because I was angry, I went to Home Depot to check their prices. It cost the same there, but I saw 2 8-foot pieces of pine that were 8 inches tall that I could make my own floor molding with for just $12 a board. So I got the 2 boards, used a router to put a little decorative bead at the top, and then just used 1 board on each wall. I had to cut out a little notch to fit underneath the cabinet, but that was pretty easy to do. Fits underneath there, and then if we come to this side, it looks very nice. So I just did the same thing on the other side, measuring and cutting out the little corner. The nice thing about the pre-made MDF trim pieces are there's no knots. What I did is I covered up any of the knots with drywall compound. After sanding and painting, the boards look just as good as the pre-finished MDF boards that you could buy for literally 200% more. With the trim measured and cut to length and painted nice and prettily, I installed it using brad nails and caulking, using my favorite method of finger smoothing to get the caulk nice and smooth. With that all done, it was time to start working on the shelf. From the existing shelf, I was able to make the short one, and with the other 2 boards, I was able to get 2 5-foot shelves. This means I had to make a third 5-foot shelf from a piece of plywood I had. This wasn't as thick as the existing shelves, but I think if I have it towards the bottom and paint it white to match, nobody will be able to really tell. After I cut the boards to the 5-foot length, I put a nice little round over on the edge that'll be facing towards the entry door. One more adjustment I want to make. I want a shorter shelf to stick out that far, so that would be 17 by 7.5. What I was rambling about there was I want the 2 lower shelves to not interfere with the opening of the drawer and the door of that little cabinet I built. So I just cut this little notch out of these 2 lower shelves so when you open the cabinet door, it can open all the way. I came up with an idea and I'm about to see if it was good or stupid. These shelves sit on here, so there's a gap behind them, which I didn't really like the look of, so I made this little back lip. There we go. It doesn't look super clean, but it does 2 things. It prevents you from putting stuff on here and just slamming it against the wall, and it fills in that gap. I left a little bit of more of a space right here on this one. Somewhere up there, maybe even this shelf is where that router is gonna sit. Let's make the rest of these little shelves. After I put together the first shelf, I ran it inside and checked the fit. Now that I know it fits, I can just match the other 2 shelves to this shelf. And don't worry, I have a plan for that. After I added that back wall to the rest of the shelves, I added a round over just to make it look a little cleaner, and then I sanded and painted them all to match the cabinet. Time for the finishing touches in this thing. We still might end up replacing this with a piece of like marble or granite if we can ever find like a remnant, which I swear they used to sell. For now, this will do. I just threw a finish on that of like some spray, probably acrylic I have, just to keep it protected. To install this, I'm just gonna run a bead of caulk around all the edges and then throw a screw or 2 up through there. Nothing too heavy duty, mostly stuff goes down, not up. Good enough. Let me throw that bead of caulking. My early success with the caulking made me way too confident to do this part. It was much more of a pain to get the caulk to look smooth and even on this wood that wasn't painted white. That actually looks pretty good now. Let's see if I can do the back one. I don't even know if this tip will fit back there. Oh my God, it's not going to. I got a tube of this stuff and this thing. It still doesn't get far enough in there. Dang it. All right, I'm gonna make a stupid piece of wood trim to go back in that stupid piece of hole. Thought I was getting done. I'll go ahead and put these shelves on. I realize there's something else I have to do too anyway, so I'm not done. But I can go ahead and put this shelf on. This is gonna be the internet shelf. Guys, I'm unplugging the internet. Does anybody use it for school right now? For some reason, it was an absolute pain to get all these cords to run up to this shelf, so I made you watch the whole thing. Jesus! I'm glad you guys got to watch that. So I gotta cut that one off. Couple finishing touches, and then we'll do a final reveal. I gotta cut off those little knobbies, and I gotta put that trim back there. I got those trimmed. Now look at this. This is kind of point of these. We have a couple heavy things we like to store in this house. One is rice, and that's 100 pounds of rice. The other is our dog food bags. And now they can be stored in there. We can easily mount it. But the final trim piece never was made, and his wife got tired of waiting and used the pantry, and summer became fall, and fall became winter. The children grew up and moved out of the house, started a family on their own, and still the trim piece remained absent, until the heat death of the universe finally resulted in the house being destroyed, and the final step became an impossibility.